I've done a couple of talks to build up to it, and now we are looking at agreement number 1. Now, if you've read agreement number 1, you may not recognize that's what I'm talking about. But that's what I'm talking about. But I am talking about words. Kipling said, words are the most powerful drug used by humankind. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing what has been created by use of words. It's amazing what has been done by use of words. And it's amazing what we do to ourselves by the use of words. And so what do words mean to you? Do they seem powerful? You know, words make us cry. They make us laugh. They wound us. They heal us. They inspire us. They inspire us to fight. They inspire us to die. And they even inspire us to kill sometimes. Words create emotions, and there's motion in emotion, and so that moves us to action. But it begins with a thought, and then it begins with the word. And most of us, sadly to say, are unconscious when it comes to words. We don't really think very much about it at all. Now, I know that's true because I've been talking to people for 59 years almost, or at least listening just about that amount of time. And I've heard people say crazy things. And then when I thought about saying that, I quickly wanted to let you know, and I've said a lot of crazy things too. And so that tells me something. It tells me that we sleepwalk through life when it comes to the words that we use. But it's time that we wake up. And that's not just a lie. It really is time that we wake up, because it's vital individually that we learn how to talk, that we learn how to speak. You know, as a little kid, I didn't talk until kind of late, and when I started talking, I had a lot of speech issues, had a lot of speech problems. And I think I told you that before. But it took me a long time to learn how to talk. And so in school, in the first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, I hated to read, because when you read, other kids would kind of snicker because it sounded funny. And I just didn't like that at all. But I had to teach myself. I had to do some things and learn how to talk. But now I discover that all of us need to learn how to talk, because most of us don't really understand the process. We may sound all right, but we're not understanding the process that's taking place. You see, there's inside and outside voices. Remember, we used to tell the kids are inside playing, and we'd say, use your inside voice, not your outside voice. And the truth is, when it comes to our languaging, you and I, as adults, have inside voices and outside voices. Now, I want to talk about outside voices. Those are the voices that we speak out loud and affect other people, affect the world. I'm going to talk about that later. Today, I want to devote our time to those inside voices, inside our heads. The voices that we hear all the time, and only we are aware of them. But they're talking, as we mentioned last week, they're talking all the time. And so the words you habitually use. And most of us are pretty stuck in the words we use. We don't use a lot of new words. And so if you pay attention, you'll realize you're using the same words again and again. And that affects how you communicate to yourself, and therefore what you experience. So I'm suggesting to you, as strongly as I know how, that the experience you are now having in your life is being created by the way you label what happens, by the words that you stick on to those experiences and those situations. Words do that. And so words really do matter. Every little word that you use really does matter. If you describe a magnificent experience with the phrase, pretty good, then what you've just done is you've taken that experience, you've taken a hot iron and flattened it out so that you lose a great deal of what really happened. And that happens because of the way you labeled it, because of the word that you use on it. And so words paint pictures. And that picture becomes what you remember. It becomes your life. It goes back to words. And so if you use the same limiting vocabulary all the time, how you doing? Oh, I'm pretty good. What's new? Nothing, just the same old stuff. Then what kind of painting are you doing? I mean, what are you really, really creating? So the more color you can use, the brighter the picture, the more words you can use. And so it's something that, I mean, I'm just not kidding you at all. I'm not pulling your leg when I tell you that we all need to stop and look at the words we are using, because we're painting ourselves into a box. And then we get up the next morning, we grab the same colors, and we do it again. And I've talked to enough people to know that guess what we do the next day? We do the same damn thing again, over and over and over. And let me tell you this, in case you're visiting, you're thinking, did the preacher just say damn? Yeah, he did, and he said it with great emphasis. And the reason is because if you think that's a bad word, that's just not the bad word. The bad words are the things that we say to ourselves when we say, well, I can't. I'm worthless. I'm no good. That's blaspheming the Holy Spirit. So those are the words. You see, that's the illusion. That's the trick. We've said, ooh, these are bad words. Let's not say those. And they really don't mean anything anyway. It's these other words that attack our very identity that are so damaging. But all of this, and this is the hard part, all of this has to be consciously evaluated. Words can transform your experience. With your words, you can increase your positive emotions, or you can decrease your positive emotions. You can increase negative emotions or decrease it depending on the words that you use to describe it. I've seen that happen. I've seen in a meeting once where some people were talking. These were very religious people, very conservative religious people, and something had happened, and one guy was just furious, and he was just steaming. His blood pressure was, the blood looked like it was going to squirt from his ears, and he said, "I'm furious about this." And there was another guy in the meeting, and I'm sure you've seen meetings like this too. And another guy just seemed very calm. His name was Don, and Don was just calm. I mean, if you're Don, you're calm. And so he was very calm. And the other guy, who was named Ed said, "Aren't you furious about this?" And he said, "I'm just a little annoyed." Now, it's the same experience, the same deal. And I've heard, I've even read about situations like that. And so you see, it really comes down to how you label the experience. And that actually becomes your life. It becomes your life. So you describe it, and it's yours. So you got to be careful how you describe it. Quit describing it the way your mother did. Stop describing it the way your father did, or your grandparents did, or television would, or just the way that you habitually would. You've got to look at it and decide, what kind of picture do you want? What kind of painting do you really want? And then realize, oh, I've got the colors. I've got the brush. And I don't have to just do it in the same old way all the time. Words, I would say words represent, but take the word apart. Words represent the experience to yourself of what life is. And that alters how you see it. It alters how you feel about it. You have two people in the same home, and one person walks out and says, "This is the most abusive home you can imagine." And the other person a year apart says, "Yeah, it's not so bad." What's up with that? One of the people crazy? One of the people in denial? Could be. Or it could simply be the way we paint our picture. The way we imagine and the way we create. Tony Robbins talks about in one of his books, he just says, 3 people are in the same experience, and one feels rage, one feels anger, and one feels peeved. Now, peeved is a good word. I don't know when's the last time you used that, but if you say, I'm so angry with you, you see, that intensifies it. If you said, I'm a bit peeved, see, it lessens the whole deal. Which one is real? Well, neither one, really. You're just creating your own experience. And so it all depends, listen, it all depends on the story that you tell. It all depends on how you translate the experience. It all depends on the words. It all depends on the label that you use. And so I'm encouraging you and me, let's stop and take a look at the labels that we're using, because some of you are using crazy labels. And your life gets crazy. And the same thing happens to me. I've seen the power of that so many different ways. Huxley wrote, words form the thread on which we string our experience. That's a good quote. And what that means is that we use words to create meaning. They filter and they transform what's happening in our lives. They filter that. And so if you want to change your life, if you want to reshape your life, and probably a lot of people would, at least in an area or two, then what we must do is this. We must begin, are you still listening, right? We must begin to consciously, that means we wake up, to consciously, with great consideration, so there's some labor involved, select the words that we're going to use in our life to fulfill our divine purpose. And so plain and simple, if you want a larger life, you've got to change your words. If you want a larger life, you've got to change your metaphor. What is life? Life is like a box of chocolates. Life is a bowl of cherries. Life is like hell. I don't know how many people I've heard say that. Well, I never want to come back here again. Oh my God. Oh, I just want to get out of here. Life is hell. Well, you just painted your picture, baby. You know, as my mama used to say, you made your bed, sleep in it. And that's exactly what happens. And so we want to be selective, because your words create your beliefs. You know, we talk about beliefs. Almost went the wrong way there. Your words create your values and creates everything around you. Your creation flows from the word. And so if you are not happy right now with your present creation, then the solution is you've got to change your language. You've got to say, how's it working for you? If it's not working, you're not going to find the answer in a book. You're not going to find an answer in a CD. You're going to find the answer inside of you. And it's going to be so close, it's just on the tip of your tongue. And that is the most truthful thing I could ever tell you. Your words are like the brush. And you take the brush, and the canvas is clean and beautiful. And you begin to paint. Your words are like a musical note. And you're going to create a symphony with that musical note as you string them together. But what determines whether or not you get a beautiful symphony or just a lot of noise depends on those notes that you put together and the notes that you hang together. Maybe that's why all the religions talk about this. I mean, this is nothing new. It's amazing how they talk about it. I was surprised just reading a lot about it in a lot of different religions this week. Sages and saints and mystics and shamans. You know, when Buddha gave the eightfold path to happiness, he talked about right speech. He talked about 8 things. He said, if you do this, you'll have complete joy. And then he said, right speech. And by right, he didn't mean morally right. He said, right means this is going to open up joy and peace to you. And if you don't take this road, you won't find it. When he mentioned, you may have not heard of this, but when he also gave the 10 brave precepts. When all the people gathered together, he said, today's talk, brothers and sisters, the 10 brave precepts. These are the things you must not do. If you do these, you will suffer. Out of 10, 4 deal with what you say. See, that tells us something. This guy was a Smart guy. Buddhism has broken it down, believe it or not, into 64 qualities of speech. The awakened one said this: you must know your intention before you speak. Now, we might as well just laugh about that. Know your intention before you speak. I don't even know what I'm saying until 10 minutes after I said it. He says, know your intention before you speak. When I was living in Illinois, in Chicago, I knew some, I think there were Mennonites. You know any Mennonite? You ever been a Mennonite before? Any Mennonites here? Well, they are some weird people. I think what's weird about it is I'm talking to them, and I'm just popping off. Don't really think about what I'm saying. And so I'd ask a question, and the Mennonite guy would go, and there'd be a minute before he'd run an answer. Now I know what he was doing. He wasn't so weird after all. He was the sane one. Because he was practicing that. And I don't know if they all do, but these people, he said, you must know your intention before you speak. Before you speak, you must ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve with this? Now, that eliminates probably 90% of our conversation. Honestly. But I'm talking about even the conversations that we're having with ourselves. He said, here's his guideline. If it is not truthful and not helpful, don't say it. We say amen. Then he said, if it is truthful, but it's not helpful, don't say it. Amen. If it is not truthful, but helpful, don't say it. If it is truthful and it is helpful, he said, wait until the perfect moment. Isn't that something? 500 years before Jesus, he said, be careful of your thoughts, because your thoughts become words, and your words will become your life. Now, in the first agreement, in the book, 4 Agreements, Don Miguel says, be impeccable with your word. That's the agreement. Say that with me. Be impeccable with your words. That's the first agreement. There's 4. He says if we do these 4, we'll develop sanity. And so that's the first one. Now let me tell you what that means. Impeccable means without sin. Hallelujah. Sin. That's a great word, isn't it? That's a word we don't like to use. I mean, we don't use that word very often, but it's a perfectly fine word. Sin. What does it mean? It means missing the mark. It means a bone has been knocked out of joint. It means you shoot your arrow and it misses the target a bit. Now, when you speak a word, and the word is spoken and it lifts you and helps you, is good for you, that's not a sin. You didn't miss the mark. You hit the target. That's the purpose of the word, to lift you. To help you walk in reality, spiritual reality. But if you speak and that word harms you, he says that is a sin. So he says, be impeccable with your words. Not one sin in your language. And I'm talking to yourself. To yourself. The tradition says when you use your words for your good, Hinduism says that's when you walk in truth. Truth is a great word. Truth is used in the Bible too. The Greek word for truth, you could name a little child this, aletheia. Aletheia is the Greek word for truth, and it means reality. It means what's real. If you say you're worthless, you ain't in the truth. If you say, well, you can never have good in your life, you're not in the truth. That's a lie. And so we have to recognize what that is. In the Bible, in Christianity, they would say, you walk in the light. And that's what it means. And so when you speak, you don't want to use your words to inflict pain on yourself and to harm you and to hurt you, because if you do, it's like knocking a bone out of joint. That hurts. It's not good. And so I say to you, and I've never said this to this community, but I'm going to encourage you, stop sinning, will you? Stop sinning against yourself. Because when you do that, again, you put yourself in a box, and every morning you get up and you make sure all the nails are tight. You make sure all the windows are closed. You make sure the door is tight, and you're painting it all the same colors. It's called boxing yourself in. And I'll tell you what that kind of sin will do. It will make you sick. It will destroy your relationships. It will suck your abundance right out through the cracks of your little wall. It will fill your heart with guilt, anger, sadness, and it will kill you before it's time. Medical science tells you the same thing. Words do that. Words absolutely do that. And all the religions say it. I mean, I've read a lot about all of them. They all say the same thing. Medical science says the same thing. All the spiritual masters say the same thing. But I don't think we're getting the message. So I'm glad Don Miguel said, be impeccable with your words. I mean, I'm just really struck by the whole thing this week, studying that, thinking about it. We've forgotten what the poets and the shamans and the sages and the mystics and the healers have said for millennia. And that is, words carry energy. Words bless. Words curse. And the ones you carry in your head, and especially the ones that you've stored in your heart, bless, and some of them curse. A well-spoken word will bring healing to the soul and the body. Judaism says that. A thoughtless word carries a deadly energy that will cut the skin of the soul, and it causes infections, and it wounds. And the thing is, it accumulates, and you know that already. It accumulates. All of those words you store, and you store them in your heart. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And so the words are stored in there. Each word carries, what does it carry? It's coming, hang on. You know, I'm thinking pictures of it, and I see my dad signing his name. James. And it tells me that every word carries a vibratory signature. It's signed. It's like writing a check. You write it, you sign it, it comes back to you. I think that's what that means. You sign it, it comes back to you. And it sends out waves. And when the universal intelligence field, when it picks up your message that you signed with your word, it begins to move and conspire in every possible way to fulfill what you are asking for. Think of it like that, man. Sartre. I don't know if you've read him, but I think he may have been from Kentucky. Because this is one of my favorite quotes about words. He said, your words are like loaded pistols. Now, Mary Pat didn't care for that, but I love that. Think about it. A loaded pistol. Bang! And there's the word. John writes, in the beginning was the Word, the Logos. Logos meant the creative force. And it says there that everything was created by the Word. Everything was created by the Logos. And the same thing is true in your life. You can blame everybody else, but if you trace it down to the root, and then down into the soil, and then down to that little seed, the little seed is going to be a thought and a word. And so I'm telling you that you stand on holy ground every time you speak. Every time we speak, it is sacred, it is holy, it is creative. You're creating something every time the words come out. See, if that's true, and again, all the religions say it. I mean, they all emphasize it, but we kind of slink through it. I mean, what? Your only chance is impeccability. And that's a big statement, isn't it? I mean, that's the foundation. That's the first step. What's the first step so I can really grow? This is it. This is it. Every word is endowed with power. And Judaism says it cannot return void. What you send it out for is going to come back with it. Now, a thought is pretty good, Eva. You doing okay? Great. A thought contains content. Content could be anything. Could be a tree. Could be a tree. Could be a flower. And in that content, to the content, you ascribe a label. Let's call it, as an example, a tree. So we have a thought, contains content, and the content I'm going to label a tree. I've got to label it something because I can't relate to it if I don't have a word. Now, perception without thought you get some information that way. Things come in, you get information. I'm touching this. Oh, my hand's burning up. I don't have to think about it. I got some information. But for me to develop meaning, for me to develop understanding, I've got to use words. There's not a lot of thinking going on without the words because it creates the meaning. Now what that means is this. When you change even one word consciously, you think, oh, I've been saying this all my life. My mother said it. And you think, you know, I'm changing it. I'm shifting it. And it takes labor because you've been doing it for such a long time. I mean, it's down there in your heart. So you're so used to talking like that. But I'm telling you, you got to listen to yourself and then shift it, shift it, shift it. You know what I mean? Like, what's this world coming to? Oh, what's wrong with kids today? I just can't believe some of the things kids do. It's just one of those days. My life just gets worse and worse. Let me tell you about my day. Over the last 3 months, let me tell you what all has happened to me. I'm giving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Over the last year, over the last decade, it's been bad. It's been bad. I've even made cards. I meditate on them. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. I put them on my mirror so I can remember how bad things are. And I have them in my car and I repeat them and I listen to the news because that helps me remember how horrible everything is. And so let me just be really honest. If you're on board with this thing at all, about this thing, I mean your own spiritual life, your life, that kind of language has to stop. And I don't normally make statements so bold, but don't do that again. Don't do that again. I mean, it's like picking up the club, you know, that you have laying there on the floor, and you've beaten yourself almost to death with it, and you just keep doing it. It's like some people talk about cutting. Well, this is soul cutting. It's like taking the knife and cutting your soul. Your soul is the incarnational part of your spirit. You're here to create a masterpiece. You have the paint. You have the brush. You have the canvas. Now, your canvas may not look at it like anybody else's, but you've got your canvas. So, and you're painting a little bit, and then you take some slime and just throw it on there. You take some dirt and throw it on there. You take some mud and throw it on there. So I don't want you to do that. I would love you no matter what you do. I mean, you could cover the whole thing up. I still know who you are. But boy, it sets your life up, so it's not all that much fun to even be here. Carlyle said, don't become a slave to your word. And then the Spanish, I wanted to say it like this because it just felt good to me. The Spanish proverb drips with honey and wisdom. When it says, and it does, tastes like honey to me. Don't speak unless you can improve on the silence. Let me say it one more time because it's so sweet. Don't speak unless you can improve on the silence. Those words in your head, if they don't improve on the silence, just let them float by. Don't grab them. Don't make love to them. Let them just float by. Don't grab them and give your attention. You know, I mentioned a while ago, I think in pictures. A lot of times when I'm talking to people, I don't know what to say to anybody. They're talking, they talk about this issue, that issue, and then all of a sudden I get pictures, and I think, oh, okay, I got it. And so you may be like that too. It's like we have a mental filing cabinet, and we keep our pictures in that file. But what I found is, in order to pull the file, I've got to use a word label. I've got to use a word. I've got to use language in order to pull the picture out. And the other thing is, the picture represents to me what the experience is. Now, listen closely, because this is important. This is a technical part of this. But the picture represents to me what the experience is, so that means I can pull that picture out of 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and relive the experience. Just the way the picture looked, which I created, of course, with my words. And so we use words to open the filing cabinet. We use words to get access to the file. And then that word label ends up producing the same experience, you know, over and over and over. But the key is that you and I can choose to get rid of some of those labels. We can choose some new ones. We can describe it in a new way. Because I'm telling you, this is the gateway to your power. You've been looking for it. You've tried this. You've tried that. You've tried some magic salve and rubbed all over your body, but it didn't do it. Then you tried to listen to certain things. It didn't do it. You tried having your... no, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that. Well, you know... Your Pat's not in here, so, you know, some people have, you know, you can have your head read, you know. People can feel the bumps in your head and tell you something. And everything works a little bit for everybody, I suppose. You know, I don't know if you're into a butt reading, but, you know, and I've told you this before, you know, Sly who? Not Stone, Sly Sylvester Stallone. You know, his mama could read your butt, honey. And so you know, get kind of a picture of it and send it in, and she can tell you what this means for you. And what I'm saying is, look, we've tried everything. We've tried all kinds of things, and I'm not making fun of anything, because almost everybody can say one thing. I tried rubbing cactus in my ears, and I'm cured. And so that can happen. So I'm not opposing anything, but I'm telling you, the real secret is, it's on the tip of your tongue. It was in your mouth the whole time. You're going to get out of the body, and you're going to be standing there, and you're going to say, hey, oh my God, I'm looking back at my life, and now I realize, oh, I did it all with my tongue. I thought my tongue was only good for 2-3 things, but it was good for everything. It was actually the creator of my life. It was actually the rudder that guided my ship. That's what James said.